Thank you for that spirited speech, Hilary. Now I'd like to bring up the third speaker from the proposition, Charlotte Yeeun Chun.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I'd like to bow to the opposition's superior knowledge and experience of Thanksgiving and tell them that as the only non-American on the American team and having lived predominantly within America, I still believe I've preserved my cultural and ethnic identity within the United States simply because, as we have told you, Mr. and Madam Speaker, America defined that culture is not defined by political borders, but because there's so many different cultural groups within the United States, we can't, by our definition presented by our Prime Minister, identify America as having a culture, Mr. and Madam Speaker. So let's take a look at some of the arguments that the opposition has brought to you today and tell you exactly why they're wrong. So first of all, they talked to you about interaction, right? How these different groups can interact and how that's like a great culture. North Korea can interact with the European Union, Mr. and Madam Speaker, but we don't believe that by any means their talking, their negotiations, and please God, not war, would actually make sure that they have the same culture, right? We think that integration is great. The different cultural groups speaking and interacting with one another, even within regional groups of the United States, is amazing. That doesn't mean that they all share the same culture. Connor told you that he's from New York and that he, by God, does not have the same culture as George W. Bush. And we'll say that there's similar differences by the history of the United States and how it has grown, and also by the different cultural differences within the regions. We definitely don't think that there's a united American national culture, Mr. Madam Speaker. So they told you about how we could mix the cultures, right? Well, we told you exactly why that doesn't work. The fact that there's so many different ethnicities represented within the United States political system, and also within its culture itself, shows exactly why, no sir, why we don't have this unified culture, right? So me as a Korean American living in New Jersey can definitely define and identify myself as a Korean American and not have to associate with the singular stereotype of howdy y'all, welcome to Thanksgiving. No sir. So we talked to you about how it's actually significantly different because once again, Madam Mr. Speaker, political borders don't define a culture. We think that you can have multiple cultures, and we think that's awesome, but we don't think they should pigeonhole them under this whole thing of a national identity. The European Union is like a federation with different cultures, right, Madam and Mr. Speaker? It doesn't mean that all the countries have the same culture. In fact, we think that would be highly problematic. We think the same would be with the United States. So we'd like to flip over to our own case, Mr. Madam Speaker. We'd like to talk to you about a new fad, not Justin Bieber, called globalization. And we think that this is excellent, especially my perspective as a Korean American who has lived in the United States, right? So we'd like to talk to you about how it isn't just a one-way phenomenon from a series of transactions in which a single culture can be developed, could be recast into unrecognizable terms. So let's take Chinese takeout, for example, right? So it was supposed to be a Chinese cuisine brought to America, that it was fried into American cuisine, and then neither country actually wants either one of it, but they're too scared to throw it out because it tastes really good. Let's just admit it, it tastes really good. So what exactly is the problem here? Globalization has made it that not only is it really difficult to point out what the origins of a culture are, but that they've mixed and interlinked them so intermittently that it's actually impossible to say that there's one unified culture, Mr. Madam Speaker, especially within a country like the United States that has so many different vibrant cultures and plays up on its diversity, not a single blanketed single national identity. We think that that's actually highly offensive to the different regional groups of the United States and of all its diverse cultures, Mr. Madam Speaker. If you truly listen to the State of the Union, you'll understand that there will be a huge diversity of cultural groups, and we're very proud of this notion. So we also like to talk to you about the fact that when I went back to Korea this winter, I finally escaped from listening to South Korean singer Psy's Gangnam Style in the United States. So I was so happy to go back, only to realize that in Korea I've been listening to Justin Bieber for 3 hours, right? This is an instance of globalization. Is he American? Is he Canadian? Nobody really knows anymore. But the fact of the matter is, we have globalization that makes sure that not a single culture can be identified within the political borders, and that they've interacted to a point where we can't distinguish where the origins are from. It's really important here, Mr. Madam Speaker, that we're not saying that there's no culture whatsoever. We're saying that there's so many different types of regional cultures that you can't blanket it and pigeonhole it by national boundaries. We think that is highly inaccurate. And what do you have to say to that, sir?
Protected time.
Protected time. Never mind, sir. All right. So we also like to talk to you about the fact that even this morning, right? If America has such a unified culture, how difficult was it for me to make sure that my other 4 teammates had the same tie? I mean, just look at them. Like, it was so difficult. And this just represents their different regional identities, and even like American itself. It's just really difficult to try to identify under one blanket statement, right? So like, we really want to point out to you, Mr. Madam Speaker, that in this round, we're not saying that culture in itself doesn't exist anywhere. We respect the French culture. We respect the different aspects of French culture. We respect that different nations may have their own unique culture. But especially in America, where we didn't have a heritage of people who were uniquely American from the founding, especially in America, where different regional groups founded at different times, and especially in America, where globalization has hit so hard, we definitely don't think there's one unified national culture. Thank you very much.